Alrighty. Number 8, the last one. As of recording this, number 9 has been released, but I won't be recording that in this batch. When there are a bunch more released, I will have a look and we might do this again for the next 8 or 10. But for now, this is the last one, so cliffhanger until some other point in the future that may or may not happen. So, yeah. A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, DuckMachine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Anyways, onto the story. Agro had just finished up using the last canister of nano precursor, enough material for printing up pretty much all of the replacement parts for the ship. This would eat the entirety of profits gained from selling the taxon if they succeeded in the suicidal plan. No, not plan, half-baked idea based on centuries-old information. The only reason that there was even a sliver of a chance for it to succeed was because of how unlikely this particular situation was. Farcical, really. No human ever dreamt of being trapped in the enemy vessel without going on the offensive. Agro had seen what had transpired on the vociferous prophet several cycles past. It nearly triggered PTSD episode, and his breathing became labored. Were it not for the drugs, he would be unable to work. Humans were demons, and this one bathed in blood. Agro's hands shook as he entered the final commands. He extracted a small vial containing about 10,000 nanites, of which only about 100 were stealth class. He was about to call for Fulson when the treacherous tail showed himself. He was a knife in weight for an ample back. "Boss, it's done already." There was a pride in Agro's voice. He had completed the conversion in only 14 hours, with plenty of time to spare before the human woke up. Fulson did not look happy at the news, teeth showing at the back. A rage kept in check. It came with age, Agro supposed, and it was hard to use the drugs after the third age. Even so, those of high breed were trained in all sorts of disciplines. This might have been one facet. Not that Marcos ever showed restraint. Perhaps his lessons never took. Or he was a blood error, one that would be corrected once back in warmth of a home space. The old tail took the corner seat and rested with the grace of one much younger. "Is, something wrong?" Agro knew better than to provoke a strong reaction, but he knew that his superiors loved to be engaged like this. Fulton just moved his eyes to Agro, a steady coldness forming in the yellow-red orbs, locking a gaze that for a moment seemed to size Agro up as prey to be hunted. But just as quickly as they moved or tracked the small vial he held so strongly in his left hand. "The beast wakes. We are late. I can't let him know." Those words fell on Agro like the weight of 1,000 suns. In shock, he merely stared at Fulson. Seeing Fulson make a move to get up, Agro's heart raced. "No, wait, think I can, Agro froze up as the normally sluggish Fulson had crossed the room in a few seconds, and now held the vibro knife far too close for comfort. But seeing how he was still alive, he gulped loudly. This close, Fulson's eyes were like beads of glass, dead, resigned to a course of action. "Don't beg," were the only words that he uttered. Agro managed to put his own words together. "If the demon is still in sickbay, we can do it. We can, really, we can do it. Please don't do this." The knife retired a few inches. "How?" The word was raspy, like nails dragged across armored plates. Agro counted his blessings and made a note to pray strongly to the sacred seven and the ancient bones. "The decontamination system, we can use it to infiltrate the nanocloud, make it look like a normal overreaction of the system to external contamination on his suit's surface. They will hide the intrusion of the stealth nanites by sheer numbers. From there on, the same plan. I can adjust the parameters to deal with the human's own nanite countermeasures by sticking to suit systems only." For a tense, intermediate expanse of time that felt like centuries to Agro, there was only increasingly exasperated breathing breaking a deadly silence. The temperature in the room seemed to have dropped a few degrees, and Agro was not daring enough to make any comments. After this eternity, Fulson sheathed his blade in one quick and silent movement. No doubt, practice hundreds, if not thousands of times. A flawless execution without having to take his eyes off Agro. "Get it done." Fulson was not an eloquent mood, it seemed. Originally, the ship dispensed puffs of nanomaterial agents into the sickbay for sterilization of foreign contaminants, and that specific system had 3 independent backups with redundancies built in. You could not just mess with it on the fly. The sickbay computer would throw a fit, and that was to say nothing of what the environmental AI would be doing, as releasing unsanctioned nanomachines into the ship's atmosphere could have serious consequences. The completely insane jargon species used specialized projectiles on their ship-to-ship weaponry, each carrying a self-replicating swarm of nanodecomposers, all hell-bent on destroying a ship by any means possible. So you had to learn and fight fire with fire. It meant legions of security layers to prevent this very scenario. But those self-same layers were much harder to be applied inside a pressurized vessel of a ship. Organics lived there, and they needed to not have an overzealous anti-intrusion swarm trying to make its way into the breathing organs to blend them into a fine pink mist. This is why security protocols preventing messing with the sickbay dispensation of its very limited in-scope nanomachines. However, Marcus in his paranoia had those systems modified, likely to covertly assassinate injured crew members to increase the size of a cut from a successful raid. There were no signs of the specific kill nanites, but that did not mean that they could not be added on a moment's notice. This made Hakil's plan viable. There was no reason to suspect the tampering of the critical ship systems in order to create an attack vector. And even if such a suspicion was raised, the logical conclusion would be that there was not enough time to create an antagonistic nanos and modify said ship systems in time that was presented. The human had no feasible way to suspect something was amiss, as the environmental system spat an extra cloud of nanites. Hidden by a billion or so medical disinfection nanites was a party of about 100 specialized stealth infiltrators. The fine mist-like cloud washed over the suit as Jason was climbing in. No alarms raised. The external surface of the suit was covered in an electric field strong enough to fry any nanites that got past its electromagnetic defensive barrier. Using the cover of several tens of millions of medical nanites, the stealth infiltrators made it to a knee seam. Using a careful and measured approach, they drilled into the suit, being sure to seal themselves in as they went. Of course, this action was not without risk, and the suit's sub-mind in charge of that particular armor section made a note of clinging medical nanites to its surface, sending a strong surge of power to clean them off. But as it found no more fault, it got filed away in a low-priority security report and sent up the chain. Eventually, it was elevated by the right-leg administrator's sub-mind in an inconsequential and not pursued. Not that there was much more to investigate. It was a seamless entry with a rather tiny number of hostiles. It was calculated that for an effective attack on the Centurion's chute, you would need several septillions worth of nanocloud bellicose in order to overwhelm the defensive systems, and deploying nano-weapons on a scale on the battlefield was prohibitively expensive. It was the sort of stuff you reserved for the internal defense of military bunkers. As predicted, the internal surface was designed to shred trespassers, and the energy pulses would scramble systems. This was expected, and about 20 stealth infiltrators sacrificed themselves to create a safe passage and to fool the suit system looking for the variants in the field. From there on, things were slightly easier, as there was a series of conduits that allowed for rapid disposal of micro-machines. With one ant-sized worker hijacked, the infiltrators were now on their way to the objective castle. S-67. Say, anyone else feel like we're in a Victor Hugo novel? S-25. You mean because we have parallels between our current situation and the sewers under France in both The Hunchback of Notre Dame and the escape of Les Miserables? S-17. I'd rather say it's a reminiscent of Operation Chariot. We are about to make the Bismarck useless after all. S-63. I do wonder why we are programmed with literary and historical knowledge of humans. S-23. Because know thy enemy? SI-25. Art of war principle. When you are ignorant of the enemy but know yourself, your chances of winning or losing are equal. So it is obvious that understanding humans and their culture is of benefit to us stealth infiltrators. SI-67. Yeah, but how? In what tangible way? I think we're losing sight of the mission the more we discuss humans. I mean, just look at number 1, complete human otaku, obsessed. SI-17, I concur. I mean, our objective is obviously a reference to Castle Bravo. S-25, could also be a reference to Takashi's castle and the futility of mission or a steep curvature of its inherent difficulty. SI-01, I'm not saying, but did you guys know about how even though there was at one point only one human superpower with nuclear armaments, it did not attempt to conquer the planet? SI-17, that's our answer. We're all overthinking it, 25. SI-67, because he has a larger processor or wants to pretend he does. I say, if anything, the faulty one here is, someone? SI-63, that is the worst attempt at a pun that I've ever heard. SI-23, it is the only one you've heard. We're all new and heading into a suicide mission. SI-17, if enough of us perish, we can say that we're a 47 Ronin, provided someone dies. SI-02, are you guys planning an insurrection? Several seconds of calm silence. SI-63, so, why aren't they called ants? SI-23, the biological creatures or the artificial constructs that we're riding on? SI-63, both? SI-23, it's from Germanchemist, and even older from German meaning the bitter. Humans are not exactly poets when naming things. The construct sort of looks like a legionary ant. I'm sure there is a joke in there somewhere by a human engineer. But I was not loaded with humor database. SI-01, everyone, we are at the fusion casing. Time to earn that paycheck. Jason felt at home once he was back in his suit. A quick scan said everything was operating with acceptable parameters. He was glad the lizards did not make him activate the Sparagmus protocol. The multiple surgeries had left him with severe physical deficiencies, and even though his body entered a state of repair for 16 hours, there was still a lot that needed to be addressed. Fortunately, certain issues had been resolved. His lungs were back to full operational capacity, and the damaged abdominal area would hold its current state until he could get to a human facility. But the situation was tenuous at best. With too many Taxxon to protect in a hostile environment, the odds were not favorable. And the Tirashalva were known to be sneaky. They would be making plans, and no doubt plans that involved stabbing Jason in the back at their earliest opportunity. He would have to remain vigilant to such an eventuality. Not an easy feat, but since he was the biggest threat they faced, the logical conclusion to the problem was to incapacitate him. They did not attempt that in the sickbay while he was undergoing surgery, most likely due to the threat that he had made. The most likely scenario was to buy some time or isolate him enough to minimize the loss of Taxxon slaves. Thus, a counter would be to surround him with Taxxon. Jason had gambled a lot with the sickbay request. If the ship was sophisticated enough, the entire section could be detached from the main body. He would have been in essence completely isolated, and it would have cost him dearly. But when he scanned the female lizard that had served as his courier, she did not exhibit the markers of deception, or a eureka moment. Upon entering the room, he saw that it was not structurally rigged for separation. Indeed, scans indicated that it was located centrally to the ship's frame. So how would the next attack come? He entered the mess hall with several dozen Taxxon now looking at him, words of encouragement and affection thrown his way. It is not typical of their species to use single words, but they learned that humans communicated that way. A simple mission had turned into a rather difficult voyage. But perhaps there was enough time to course correct and turn things around. Casimir Cascade imminent, ejecting pilot, cold call. Jason found himself on the deck of the mess hall as his suit closed up and hunkered down. Superheated steam shooting out of the back. A terrible realization dawning upon him. They had already made their move and had no time to act. The PA system cackled as it was activated, and a perfectly monotonous human analog voice came on. You are now locked in this compartment. Your compliance will determine if many Taxxon under your care live or die. Failure to comply will result in the evacuation of the atmosphere. You will no doubt survive from this time. The Taxxons will not. There was a pause to the left, information sink in. Remove the nano-layer suit you currently wear and prepare to be transported to the brig. You have 30 seconds. That was nowhere near enough time to punch his way out of the situation. This was a well-planned trap. He needed to buy time and prepare for his next move. With a mental command, the black nanosuit retreated into the pack between his shoulder blades. The pack detached and clattered onto the deck, a small amount of nanites burrowing into the seams and out of view. The PA crackled again. "Do not make any sudden movements. The hallways are open into a path into the brig. Walk, and do not deviate." With little choice, Jason walked his naked form to the brig. One of the cells awaited open. It was facing the previous lizard captain, who gazed intently at Jason, almost in disbelief. It was rare enough to see an unarmed centurion, so he did not mind. Marcus heard the hiss of the brig's external door. For a second, he could not believe his eyes. The human sans armor? How? A feat worthy of praise, but the ancestral bones was in sight to behold. Those eyes, human eyes, were always fixed on prey. It was truly something else. And yet this demon was now caged no different than any common criminal. Not that such a predicament would hinder one such as himself. Marcus was unique, of course. Simple minds never thought far ahead, and he did not have a simple mind. He had planned for the unlikely and treacherous possibility of being behind one of the energy cells in the brig, no doubt by the most treasonous crew. A series of contingencies were in place. No doubt by now the crew believed the computer would take them homebound in what would be a boring and safe manner, believing Marcos to be short-sighted and cowardly. This misguided confidence had already spelled their inevitable defeat, and Marcus's return to his rightful position as the shipmaster. A pity the crew would not live to see its ascension, but they had lost already. Not that such minds were capable of seeing that. End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.